Good night. Mahar here. I'm going to respond to a comment because sometimes I don't know in text if things get lost but they do get more confusing, I've noticed. So, someone left a comment on a video of mine, which is a few years old now, called BPD How to Borderline Think. And so the commenter had said something about, they had said there was very good insight in the video into how people with BPD think, yet simple. And they don't think. And the logic goes out the door and supersized emotions run them. When going through rounds with them, we feel tired, confused, emotionally drained, and most of the time I have problems even trying to figure out how the particular or any particular conflict started. Well, and this happens for a lot of people with codependency who keep trying to go around these circles with people with BPD. To what end? So I commented back to the commenter simple, really. Okay. Do I not make the point, as I've made for 26 years online, that untreated people with BPD have the defense mechanism of magical thinking, which isn't about thinking, it's about feeling what they feel is actually what's real, in spite of evidence or things to the contrary. And I said, which doesn't involve logic. And then I said, my question to you, or to anyone with codependency, kind of like in this situation, is what you think is so, quote, simple, unquote, would be so, if it's so simple, in other words, for people with codependency that borderlines don't think and that they get flooded with emotion, like the commenter already said, then my question would be to people who still think this is simple, or that it's so simple what's going on with people with BPD in this regard, then why and how is it so that codependents still replay out these situations? To what end? Because what's simple about that, right? And then the commenter commented back, my guess is the idea that we hold the key to unlock things that hold us back. Okay, well, total complete sentences would help, because that is a codependent illusion, if not delusion, that one holds the key to unlock the things that hold one back, or the borderline back, or the relationship back. I'm not sure what the commenter is saying. We want to make sense of the whole relationship struggle with the person with BPD and fix things. Yeah, and that's where it's about codependency more. It's even about the borderline anymore. And it's like playing some low odds game at a carnival where we get drawn in. Well, you don't get drawn in. You make choices that aren't so conscious. People with codependency as well. You're not drawn in. You're not helpless. You're not, just somehow the capital B, drawn in helpless person to a person with BPD. And if people with codependency feel this way, hey, there's even more work to get done. Just keeping it real to help you heal. And then the person decides to get drawn in. But we can never get that big prize. It seems and looks like an easy achievement. Okay, well, I don't know where this person is coming from at all, but love is not an achievement. Being in a relationship with anyone and loving and trying to find an egalitarian, interdependent, healthy space to share and have respect and what healthy love is about is not a big prize, and it's not an achievement. So what is that, like a codependent delusion? I don't know. If the people with BPD are unwilling to get help, then even though we don't want to face it, it's time to move on. Yeah, something I've been saying for 26 years online. I wouldn't be the only one, but for that long, maybe. And then the commenter said it's tough to face when there are many years and kids involved. Well, of course it is. Of course it is. But it doesn't change anything. And, I respectfully say, had you, been able to get to a point of choice sooner, which people could but often don't, it would still be really difficult, but maybe a little less so. But when there's kids involved, nothing is going to be simple. back to my point about simple, huh? What's simple about it? And then no one else, friends or family, will even really acknowledge the elephant in the room to my support to convince a person with BPD, especially the baby boomers. Now, there you've totally lost me. Like, what? You're saying that no one in, like, your friends and family will rally. Well, they don't understand. But you're saying they won't rally. I guess they're not supporting you to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which would be what exactly? That the person with BPD has BPD, that they don't think, that they have magical thinking, that is driven by their feelings, that you already know this, that you can't make it work and you can't fix this person, you need to heal your codependency, and so they won't rally to your support and address the elephant in the room, which would be what? Just the person with BPD, or like also your issues, which they likely have a hand in creating, so that's another reason why they wouldn't want to address the elephant in the room, as you put it. And you said, so it's really hard to convince the people with BPD, especially the baby boomers. Well, I don't know if you're talking about family members there or what, but I just have to say, as a late stage baby boomer, I'm not ageist, I'm not, into intergenerational warfare, but seriously, do you think that people your age, commenter, or anyone who resonates with this comment or my response, or either or, do you really think it's about generations? I mean, some things are generational, but especially the baby boomers. Really? Well, why don't you go talk to some other people then that are younger and see how well they do? That's just, maybe you're referring to your parents or baby boomers. I don't know. What's that got to do with anything though? Nothing. Well, I would submit to you. And then you said my point on it being simple is simply people with BPD simply lack logic and are simply driven by emotional flooding. Get my drift? Dude, I don't know where you're coming from, frankly, because I find this a tad disrespectful. So I'm just going to say to you, like, I got your drift before you understood the drift. Yeah, I'm probably the elephant in the room. I'm not saying you're saying that. But I'm a baby boomer, late stage. I can't help it. I'm not responsible for the whole frickin' generation. And I think, one thing that younger people need to learn, you want to be intergenerationally attacking people, and maybe you're attacking I don't feel attacked, but maybe you're attacking parents that are baby boomers. I don't know. But what's with this generational thing? Because Gen X has its problems. Baby boomers have their problems. Late stage baby boomers like me had nothing to do with the Cultural Revolution. I was like 6. And then the other thing is, what's generations got to do with it anyway? Because that's not what creates the problem. That's not what creates the problems and the pain in people's lives. So you're asking me, do I get your drift? When seriously, I was probably doing this work, I don't know how old you are, but before you had a clue. So, maybe you don't, I want to get words to work with here. I don't have intonation, right? But you said, my point on it being simple, in quotes, is simply people with BPD, in quotes, simply lack logic and are simply driven by emotional flooding. Get my drift? Well, you know what? Do you get my drift? That all this simply about the people with BPD, then why are you still there? Why have you been there? Why do you have children with this borderline? If it's so bloody simple, and you have to put simply in a sentence like 4 or 5 times, what is simple about this? Because you're pointing at the cluster B. You're pointing at, I guess, the borderline wife or soon-to-be ex. But you're not looking at you. Because if people with BPD and this idea of they lack logic is so simple, then how do you explain how you haven't taken care of yourself a long, long time ago if it's so simple? I guess it's pretty fair to say codependency is not as simple as borderline magical thinking then, maybe. I don't know. And you said I would vent to a good friend of mine about my wife's different episodes, and my friend would come back with, well, she should have done this or that, and I would get tired of hearing that from him. So you kept talking to him though, right? like a good codependent. And then you said, I would have to remind my friend, yes, I know, but with people with BPD, logic goes out the door. Well, commenter, with all due respect, where's your logic in any of this? Circular conversations with people, and baby boomers from somewhere, maybe it's your parents, because they're baby boomers they don't understand, or because they're your parents, and they have other issues, like seriously. And then you're saying, so you get tired of your friend or friends, you get tired of hearing it from them. But don't you realize that you're now the issue for them with your repeated talking about this because you're codependent and you're not working it out and you're not finding a solution, although it's so simple. So I would say to you, commenter, and many people that present like you do and are having the codependency issues that you are, do you think codependency is simple? Do you think that the logic of codependence can even begin to awaken you to the healing and recovery process that you need? And just stop blaming the cluster B for this aspect of your experience, which clearly rests with you and is 100% your responsibility. So I don't know what else to say, but that I do find it sometimes a little incredulous to very boring, making me feel like what I'm saying here sometimes really isn't worth it anymore. When people are like, but it's so simple, it's so simple, oh, it's so simple, so simple. And then might be talking about, but it's so simple that people with codependency aren't getting it, right? But it's so simple. Oh, borderlines, yeah, the fact that they don't have logic, it's so simple. Well, I would say to this person and other people with codependency, if it resonates with you, where'd your logic go on this front? Where's your logic? How is your logic not failing you? When you're looking for logic from someone that it's oh so simple, according to this commenter, that of course people with BPD don't have logic. To which I would also suggest that this person wouldn't know that without watching my videos and or maybe the odd other person out there with some accuracy to this. But, I mean, I'm not taking it personally, but then I don't know what the reference is to baby boomers. And I'm just, like I said, a late stage baby boomer, which means I'm a lot older than, I'm of that generation, but what's a generation got to do with it? That's all I would say. And then for people with codependency writ large here that are in these circles, and I mean this with all due respect, but if I sound a little frustrated, I am. Because this comes up time and time again, one way or the other, whether it's an elephant in the room, and whether it's baby boomers, or whether it's this or that. But the idea that I guess somebody who's at least a generation or two down from moi would say, do I get their drift? Because it's so simple, it's so simple, it's so simple? Well, if it's so bloody simple, commenter and other codependents, then what are you still doing there? Why are you still going in your circles and talking to friends and getting tired of what they tell you? Because, they can't listen to you anymore. What part of that don't you get? That you need to get into therapy, where I have a lot more patience with clients than I'm having with this video response. But what is so this idea that people with codependency, you learn some stuff about BPD, okay, or about people with BPD, but they're not all the same. And then you say, well, it's simple that they lack logic. But then, what does that mean? That everybody with codependency in these patterns has uber logic? No, you don't. You have logic that you're trying to apply to their lack of logic, which in and of itself is not very logical. And then you get lost in your own circles and your own pain and your own hurt, and people aren't hearing you or supporting you, this commenter, probably a lot of people with codependency. And then I don't know what it has to do. What's the elephant in the room? I really don't get it. And then you lose me with when you say especially baby boomers. If you mean your parents by any chance, why don't you say that instead of baby boomers? Because now you're sounding entitled on top of it all. What do you think? All of us that are older than you, obviously, we're baby boomers. I'm late stage. I don't know if you're talking about, I don't know who you're talking about. Your parents are baby boomers? Maybe? I don't know. Could be. There's no context here that flows, but that you want to ram home your point that it's simple and do I get your drift? And dude, as a baby boomer, let me say to you who must be younger and a generation or two below me, I had the drift likely before you were born. So people with codependency need to realize that your uber logic that you hang on to, and especially a lot of men, and I don't mean to offend anybody with this, it doesn't work for you when you're dealing with somebody with BPD who simply, it's so simple for you to understand that they don't have logic. Well, when you're applying logic to an illogical situation, how logical of you is that? And I'm not just saying this to this commenter, to all people with codependency. And don't think that somehow your logic and your codependency is oh so different than people with BPD and their lack of logic and their issues. Like I said, there's a difference, but it's not like people with BPD are the ones with everything wrong and people with codependency are the ones who are all normal. No, not at all. So once again, this is a video and a response to a comment, and it's keeping it real to help you heal. So you can choose to hear me and or not, and you can choose to get that your lack of logic is no more logical at this point, commenter, than the borderline's lack of logic. And I'm not saying that makes you a borderline or it makes it the same, but do you know how many people with codependency continue to apply logic to a whole host of aspects of these relationships, or being the ex, and will they hoover me, and what happened and why, and all of this stuff? So what you're lacking logic in is the really, quote, simple, commenter, the simple thing that you should understand by now that you clearly don't. So do you get my drift? Why are you still invested in this? Why haven't you set yourself free? Why aren't you in therapy for codependency recovery, let alone the relationship? Why isn't your, quote, logic working with that? And how come it's really, quote, not that simple? Is it for you right now? Get my drift? I wonder. So, and to people with codependence in a broader sense, how's that lack of logic? How's that logic? It is a lack of logic at a certain point. But for people with codependency, how's that logic working for you? Trying to apply your logic to the borderline lack of logic, like somehow that doesn't put you similarly at either end, of the same boat. So just, keeping it real to help people heal, straight up honesty here. And so I don't know what the person's talking about with the elephant in the room. What would that be? Something so simple, so obvious that this person for years has just had more children with this person and stayed with them. And what's, quote, simple and logical about that on your part, commenter? Because it's not all the borderline's fault. You've made decisions and you have responsibility for them in your own life. And unless people with codependency want to get this point, probably not popular again. I don't care anymore. And I'm going to be doing about whether it's popular message or not, because I'm going to do videos that are going to reach the people that are ready to make the changes and not just do what this commenter did, which I wouldn't even know what to call that. But forward a false equivalency argument, if not a logical fallacy, trying to intimate that they're so logical and people with BPD aren't logical, but they're the one that wants to blame the borderline for that they have kids and that this is complicated. Of course it's gut-wrenching and highly emotional stuff, but then you throw it at me like, but it's simple. Don't you get my drift? Seriously, grow up. Realize what you got to do, and how about doing it? And never mind logic. You need to get into therapy and you need to work on your emotions, because these uber logical codependents, how's that working for you? Because your logic becomes logic in a relationship. Okay, never mind that. But people with codependencies, because relationships aren't all logical, because there's emotions involved. And I'm not defending the person with BPD, but I'm just saying, hey, codependents, if you want to keep blaming them for everything, not take your own personal responsibility, that's a gaping lack of logic. And I would say to the commenter, Ryan, is that simple? Is it coming from this late stage baby boomer who might be the freaking elephant in the room? I'm not saying you meant that. I'm just whatever. Is that simple? And because I'm a baby boomer saying this to whatever generation you are, how's that going to go down for you? You're going to get the point? Or you're going to stick on the word simple and do I get your drift and try to be disrespectful, just simply to put it that way. And then invoke generation and whatnot. It's like, yeah, that's really not very logical, dude. How's that going to help you at the end of the day? So this is an example of somebody with codependency who thinks that their logic is so much, makes them, quote, superior, better than, less culpable in the unhealthy bond with the borderline. And, oh, geez, all this happened to me. Yeah, okay, but do you want to stay in that mentality, or do you want to help yourself out? Because the way out of this is not through logic. And guess what, Ryan? It ain't simple. So I hope somebody else got something out of this. I hope it resonated. If it didn't resonate, it's just the truth. And there's going to be more of that coming here. Because I'm not coming here to insult anybody. I've tried everything I can in almost 700 videos to help people with codependency get this message. So yeah, it might be delivered a little bit more harshly. For some people. It may sound like that. Point is, if you don't want to hear it, you're not going to get where you want to go.